would like to welcome everyone to this dialogue, the dialogue on technology and cyberspace. Today, we are going to be talking about bullish cyberspace, which is on cyberbullying. We are going to look into the psychological aspect. We are going to hear from a psychiatrist about what needs to be done in case somebody being harassed or bullied online. We would also be looking into the technical perspective of cyber psychology, I would say. That is what goes into making a product in terms of what are the psychological perspective that is taken into consideration. So we have with us today two speakers. We have with us Dr. Emma Remicki. Dr. Emma Remicki is the co-founder of Quantum Cybersecurity Skills. She deals she is an expert in the area of technology, SOC optimization, also agile risk management, operational resilience, business continuity. We will be joined by Dr. Rajni P. Dr. Rajni P is a psychiatrist and she's also a consultant at the Department of Health and Family Welfare at the Government of Karnataka. So I would like to welcome all of you. Uh, the session is going to go like this. So we are going to first start with an opening statement of around 5 to 10 minutes given to each speakers. And then we will move into the question and answer session where we will have a discussion on the aspects of cyberbullying, psychology, and also on the aspects of the technical consideration, proactive way of dealing with the risks online. And then finally, we will have the concluding comments. So I would like to request the attendees to please post your questions, anything you have in mind on the question and answer box or the chat box. Thank you, and over to you, Emma.
Well, yeah, thank you so much for a very kind introduction. Just extend this introduction. So, yes, my name is Emma Remicki from Quantum Cybersecurity Skills. I'm the co-founder. And the reason we have co-founded Quantum Cybersecurity Skills, in the background, we are 9 people from various backgrounds: penetration testers, CISOs, SOC managers, risk auditors, and we came together in a group mainly through higher education. And we started brainstorming, and we understood that the cybersecurity problem is, it's the same thing happening on technical side and on business side. There are big challenges when it comes to cybersecurity. And that's the reason why we decided in the end, after a number of projects together, hey, let's form a new organization and include all our passion into delivering security efficacy, more outcome from existing security resources, from existing security investments. All organizations literally need, of course, they need the innovative technology investments and so on, and talent. But it's all about, big part of it is fine-tuning little elements that have a big impact. So yes, just to introduce what we do, as you said, we help transform risk management with optimized security services. We support organizations in managing security risks, help accelerate mitigation of vulnerabilities, which is very important because in many organizations, they know their vulnerabilities, but either due to shortage or lack of availability, of a security team or specific talent, those vulnerabilities could be fixed later in time or could be, ignored. Identifying threats to protect critical processes. Again, our passion is about teaching and showing organizations how to generate early business risks indicators. And indicators is indicators is the first, step, a symptom before a problem becomes huge. And those early business risk indicators are key to promote security initiatives. So in respect to your today's subject about, let's talk about psychological risks when dealing with the cyber element. I think it's a very welcome subject. And I would like to thank you for that. We don't talk about, I wouldn't say ever, but definitely not enough. We have to put this into a bigger spinning wheel and raise awareness about this. And today I will be talking, I have made a decision to talk from slightly different angle, not the cyberbullying we usually think at as a first thought, like harassing messages being posted on Facebook, or some comments, harsh comments on either Twitter or any other platforms. And what is the privacy policy, how to deal with it. But I made a decision to talk about so-called back-end people, security operations analysts, to be very specific, who are protecting not only those social media platforms, but many other organizations. So that will be my focal point, and discussing how data breaches affect their psychological and well-being. Thank you from my side. Hello?
Thank you, Emma. Yes. So we have Dr. Rajni joined. She has joined us. Just 1 minute.
Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Yeah, I'll.
Yes, ma'am. So we were just talking about, we just got started with this. We want to hear from you about what you have to say about this issue of cyber bullying, mental health issue that is really growing, and you are literally coming across this on day-to-day basis. So we would like to hear from your perspective on this particular issue, on bullish cyberspace, on technology, and also substance abuse, if you can.
Yeah. So good afternoon, everybody. And are we starting now, or we are waiting for some time?
Yes, ma'am. We have already started, ma'am. So Emma just gave a statement, and we'll start with a discussion as well after this.
Okay.
So if you can just start with an opening statement, and then we will do a discussion on the various topics.
Okay. So basically, mental health is as important as physical health. And a lot of people, because today the topic is cyberbullying, so many of the people, like, who are vulnerable, they get into this kind of cyberbullying more. And for example, a person in depression, person with anxiety problems and substance abuse, and those vulnerable who are going through some trauma, like children, adolescents, women, and those with, some illnesses where they are lonely. So a lot of these people, they are more vulnerable to get into these things. And if a person is so introvert and they don't even share what's happening, for example, if cyberbullying happens, it is always recommended that we share these, issues with family, friends, or anybody. So if you don't have that kind of a culture or mindset, it's going to complicate the issue further. I mean, good or bad. And I don't want to talk only bad about the, technology or anything. Technology has really given us a great scope of improvement, and we can usually, we need to teach or discuss more about how can we use these things in a productive, positive, in a positive direction also, right? So there is good and bad in everything, right? For even the OP products, organophosphorus products, which we use for increasing the crop for farmers, right? So because I'm a psychiatrist, I'm talking in this line. So many people actually, they attempt suicide using organophosphorus, compounds. So does it mean that we should not, use those things? We should not produce organophosphorus compounds. It is not so. So look at the good and bad both, and be, conscious and be aware where things can go wrong, and if things go wrong, what should I do? So these are all the main important things that I would want to go across while discussing.
Thank you, ma'am. So now coming across the question and answers Emma, you spoke about cyber efficacy in your opening speech. And I would just like to, and the viewers would also like to understand what is the cybersecurity technology efficacy? What is taken into consideration when you design a product? And yeah.
Fantastic question. Thank you so much. Yes, so talking about this security services efficacy, cyber operations efficacy, there are different elements. First of all, we strip security back to basics. And security is so not just technical matters. Security interlinks and connects to many business elements. It could be, in the end, a business enabler that gives agility to the business, or it could be a business sort of blocker, depends how you implement it. So when we say security optimization, we mean at operational level. That's usually technology and the data logs produced by technology. When we talk about, there is also security linking or bridging to tactical elements. And tactical elements, we consider it more as processes, compliance, that sort of thing. It's tactics. Again, from this, information is flowing in. Information, but you need to make the decisions. And again, going back to operations, it's about data quality that goes into how accurate is your information to make the key decisions at strategical level. So all three business verticals, cybersecurity optimization is touching operational, tactical, and strategical level. So at strategical level, we have those decision-making elements and people and their skills. It's not only, hey, we need this skill, let's hire a bunch of people. No, it's about looking with magnifying glass at the total pool of your talent, security talent, and optimizing it through training, continuous development, optimizing it, asking, having this pulse of your security talent. Maybe some people know how to code and are already part of SOC. Maybe they just didn't mention or something. Maybe they are very good at leadership, and so on. So it's all about those elements. And again, talking about security optimization, we need to consider not just technological risk, as I was mentioning. It's just a small puzzle piece in the big picture. We need to consider data quality, as I mentioned. We need to consider processes. Some processes could be really critical and business could stop if company was hacked and those critical processes have been affected. Do we know are they gonna withstand the time of crisis? We need to consider integrated security defense, and by that I mean much closer networking and collaboration, cybersecurity team with IT operations, with network operations, with communications, even security team with HR, understanding the security leaders need, who to hire, what's the onboarding process to take the maximum benefits. We need, as I mentioned, to include into security optimization people and the skills. So there is the whole area, different angles, compliance as well, actionable information, how we bond this. So there are many different angles of this. So when we talk about SOC optimization, we not only talk about, as I say, automation, but it's a much bigger element. It's a much bigger element. I would like to talk about it later with the second question, answering second question. So stay with me, but I hope I did answer.
Absolutely. I think this is something very relatable today. We need to work together in order to create, like you just spoke about, the interdisciplinary aspect.
Yeah.
And with this, I would like to come to Dr. Rajni. Um, Ma'am, are you there? Hello?
Yeah, I'm there.
Yes. So, ma'am, like you deal with, deal with cases of increased psychological risk due to technology usage and overuse. What do you, first of all, suggest people in order to, use technology in an optimal way? What needs to be done? And also, how do we mitigate the effects that comes out of technology usage, the
Okay.
overuse?
Yeah. So basically, the COVID pandemic, I don't know whether to thank the COVID pandemic or not. See, mental health has come to the forefront because of the COVID pandemic. So people know that there is something called, mental health. So recently I was coming across a 9th standard guy who had come along with the parents, and parents were telling, like, he's a person who was studying very well at the 8th standard. And during the COVID pandemic, they were not giving him mobile as frequently as they have to give now because of the online classes, and everything is online now. So because of the lockdown, COVID pandemic and all those things. So the person, the guy, the boy, 9th standard boy, has figured out that he can, play a lot of games with other children across overseas and all. So there is a game, I forgot the name, some Foursquare or something. So he started playing that game in the middle of the classes. And then he started competing with other children across the, various places. And this became an addiction because it gives you a ranking that you are in the top 500, you are in top 400, you are in top, congratulations, like you have come, in the top 200. So this is like, it has become an addiction to this boy who was doing very well. So the parents were very apprehensive, telling that, my daughter is doing MS in US, and this guy nowadays is losing totally the interest in studies, and he's totally addicted to mobile, and he hooks on to this. And now when the guy started talking to me, when the boy started talking to me, I was just finding out, what is your plan? Like, what do you want to do now that the offline classes are going to start? So what he told me was, like, his plan is to, take a break for 1 year. He's not going to go to 10th standard offline classes because he has figured out that this YouTube channel and all is very, exciting, and he wants to start one YouTube channel of his own, and he wants to do more and more gaming so that he comes in top 50 or top 100 to the whole country. So these are all his plans. So do we say that, come on, how can you do this, that, this, or do you, listen to the child and see what is right, what is wrong? So it really took a lot of time and he became very withdrawn also, because he has to play this game repeatedly and has to come to the, top 100 or 50 or whatever it is to get those incentives. So he had become completely room bound and he would not come out. He would not eat what mother prepares. He would order from Swiggy. He would order some burger. He would order some pizza. He's totally changed. So parents are like in a shock. I don't know what to do. So these are all the things which are, coming out. Another girl also very similar story. So this is a 11th standard girl who was very, very, talkative. She was enjoying going to the college. And because of the past last year, everything in Zoom and, online classes, now she says she's afraid of going back to the school. So she has not gone to the college. For 10 days, it has started. No hybrid mode, no online classes are there. Only offline class is the, option now. But she says, I don't know why I'm afraid, but now I'm afraid of going to the college. So a lot of these things are what we are managing now. So my advice to the parents and the students as well is, you have to fix the screen time, whatever you do. So unless you fix the screen time, it is going to be very difficult. And you should have other productive activity like, going out for a walk or play some games outside. So don't be housebound. Now I don't know, olden days, I don't know in UK, in India, ma'am, even now, we have a lot of places like villages, very poor people are there, where they can't afford, mobile phones, Android phones, laptops and all, where the poor internet connectivity is there. There the children, they go out and play with other children. But in an urban place like Bangalore in Karnataka, so it is a different kind of a problem. So we have two kinds of issues, like rural Karnataka, rural state has a different issue with the children and adolescents and other people, and urban place we have different kind of issues.
Ma'am, you touched upon a very important point there, where it is, but in terms of the technology perspective, most of the companies, they want their apps to be used maximum.
Yeah.
They want more screen time. So there is also, I would say, a gap between the psychological perspective and what's good for us and what people want us to do. And with this, I would like to come to Dr. Emma. If you can just touch upon what are the psychological elements that you take into consideration when you design a cybersecurity, when you do a cybersecurity assessment, because this is a cyber issue, and we would like to understand that more.
Fantastic question. Before I start, Dr. Virgini's comment about, limiting screen time and just comparing different locations and versus happiness of the kids to screen time and how this is affected. It's fantastic point. And it made me also smile inside and think, hey, I'm gonna lift my hand and say, it doesn't matter how bad or good it sounds, but our daughters call us Victorian parents, wooden toys and very limited screen time. So, but at least in the long term, they, the kids of ours, we hope they will have those nice memories, not just being glued to the screen because the screen time is limited, but playing outside in the garden, meeting friends, interactive, real life, in other words. So very, very, very good point. And I also wanted to thank you for bringing me and Dr. Regini into this conversation, because I really like the dynamics. Dr. Rajini is talking and conveying the story of any boy, any girl, you know, from the, you know, teenager or very young. And I'm conveying a story of an adult cybersecurity analyst, expert, who is, as I say, on the other side of the barricade, trying to protect the platforms, organizations, and so on. What is there? Because they are all humans, right? There is a link. They're all humans, and they are experiencing stress and mental trauma, or after the breach or cyberbullying in very similar aspects. And I was going to talk about it with this question you just asked me. So yes, being in, you know, an information security professional and being part of Security Operations Center is very stressful from many aspects. One aspect is there is a lot of information sources that are being delivered, and how do you focus and not lose your priorities, what to do when there are different messages, notifications coming all the time. You need to be very curious and investigate when you see something is not right. And it's not always very obvious something is not right. You know, in some cases, this is that sixth sense that will lead into exploring and discovering cyber breach. So security professionals, especially those involved with the security operations and incident response, they have very dynamic jobs, unpredictable. You don't know, hey, I'm going to work today, and at 10 o'clock, I know exactly the data breach is going to hit, so I'm mentally prepared, I can cope with it. No, usually this is being discovered in some cases. Someone else, like third party, rings up and says, we are noticing strange behavior either from your website or you know, through different sources. We think you might be breached, check it out, or discovering it. And we know that speed of discovery, and this is another big focal point of ours. Through security efficacy, we aim to enable organizations to read those initial signs, initial symptoms of data breach, because they could be so well hidden by reduced traffic, which is not being alerted. You know, cyber criminals are very good psychologists as well. They know human psychology. They know how not to create waves and make yourself visible when you know, they are pursuing their goals, which is hacking organizations, stealing data, and so on. So I like to applaud one person in particular, is Vanessa Pagueros from OneLogin. She has written a very touching article about, you know, SOC analysts, security analysts, and their mental well-being and trauma after data breach. Again, when we look at the environment, what is surrounding us, Gartner suggests from their reports that ransomware is has increased by 700% since 2016, I think. So, and it's growing because it's very, there are many tools available to create ransomware, different types of attacks, with not so much effort, to be honest, and at a rather low cost. Another, again, this is psychological element as well, I would say, because behind ransomware attacks, criminals, as I mentioned earlier, they're using psychology. Because one of the best medicines to prevent from ransomware attacks is to exercise very high security hygiene. And we know that it's not the case in every single organization. And we are not talking just about patching and so on. Although this is an important element, but you know, it has to be embedded in security culture to exercise on a daily basis in your daily routine the high security hygiene. And it's very the environment SOC analysts work, it's very unforgiving. One error, one single error, someone is entering through a back door or application, you know, that tiny element which was in a gray area, in a blind spot, and your organization is hit. And all this big effort of protecting employees, organization, customers, looks like it's going to nothing, right? It's incorrect, but it's very unforgiving. On the other side, hackers, they have all the time in the world, and they are acting more like chancers. They are sending, they are experimenting they are sending many different ransomware campaigns, phishing campaigns, SIMs and BEX, business email compromise. They're looking for different ways to as I say, tip on this human psychology. So another discovery, so by Ponemon, our team was researching and reading, and is very passionate reading many scientific research or business research. So Ponemon suggests that there is one moderate incident every 13 months in non-optimized security operations centers. And when I talk about moderate, I talk about moderate exposure to business by breach notification, process or public image impact. So it's moderate. And they did a scientific research to compare, so optimized SOC, where security efficacy is being improved through this high security hygiene, very strategic approach. So as a comparison, there is one moderate incident in every 9 months. So you can see the differentiator, 13 months versus every 9 months. So let's talk about significant incidents. Again, it's Ponemon's data. So there is one significant incident every approximately 22 months in not in optimized security operations centers, so who have security under tight grip, right? So what is significant data breach? It's very high profile, severe long-term impact on organization, massive notification process, loss sensitive information, public image impact, and so on. As a comparison, non-optimized security operations are exposed to significant data breaches on average every 17 months. So again, you know, you can see the difference. What is security efficacy bringing towards the data breach? But still, if you listen to the numbers, right? Every 9 months or every 13 months, significant, either every 17 months or 22 months, there are still breaches every year, right? So we should talk about how the post-traumatic, the post-breach traumatic trauma for those security analysts. And we actually did a global survey last year. We interviewed 50 global SOCs to analyze generally why SOC analysts are leading, you know, and and link this to, and part of my other answer will be, how does it link to post-traumatic effect of data breach? So our research data show that 9% of security experts will leave organizations because there is an outdated technology, outdated, ineffective, non-intuitive processes, or too many manual processes. 14% of SOC analysts will leave organizations because of lack of training. It's either no budget to run those continuous development training to improve the security skills, how to operate technology, how to understand how security links to business, and so on, or the training that was chosen by organization to be provided is not really closing the gap of skills. So another interesting discovery was there is equal percentage, 20% of SOC analysts deciding to leave organizations because of cultural barriers. And by that, we mean poor leadership, lack of positive security culture, or no recognition as individual. And another 20% lack of work-life balance. As I mentioned, stress due to high workload. You need to perform your duties in specific defined time. We call it SLAs, service level agreements, work shifts, which don't really contribute to higher quality work-life balance, burnout due to information fatigue. And this is where I want to say and link back to my initial message: security is so not just technical matters. Here we hear 20% of your SOC analysts on average are leaving organizations due to burnout, and because of information fatigue. It's a lot of blur, it's a lot of noise to get into the right data. And 36%, very close to 40, right? So 36% of SOC analysts are leaving because there is no defined career path, including salary, stagnation in their existing role, talent, their skills, the I would say potential they could bring to the organization is not optimized, and the career progression plan is not part of strategy or initiative. So nobody wants to be in the same role, with few exceptions, for another 10 or 15 years, So the psychological impact of cyber attack and your teams, and how to mitigate those effects. So there is a data from FBI released in 2020, which suggests that cyber attacks as a number have jumped by 300% over the last year, and it is going to increase. So like cybersecurity ventures are also suggesting that cyber attacks cost to global economy $6 trillion US as an annual loss. And the breaches, it's very easy, maybe not that easy, but it's very obvious to count in, hey, okay, we got breached. So what are our costs? There are direct costs like regulatory fines, lawsuits, consumer loss, remediation, additional audits, additional security costs to get things fixed. And there are also indirect costs, like we tend to consider them like brand impact, staff departure, top caliber talent might not necessarily want to join your organization after data breach. And people talk about environments, if one SOC analyst say, hey, this organization from Security Operations Center is a big mess, don't go there. You will be burned out in 6 months and you will need to find another job. people do talk, people do convey this information, but in those data breach costs, direct or indirect, I haven't seen any psychological impact reference, you know. How does it impact the security analysts? Are they gonna be, you know, one effect of this we see in, it could be a change of management, you know, firing some top level executives, or company says, hey, we are reorganizing after data breach. You know, or maybe they will throw suddenly a lot of money. Hey, let's get fixed and get protected from any other data breach appearing here. Or there could be a security cultural shift. But it's not just that. You need to think from security analyst, from a perspective, security analyst perspective, from a security team perspective, how the behavior is changing after data breach. So maybe as Dr. Rajini has mentioned and was referencing to some elements of the post-traumatic stress disorder, is to avoid situation. Information, you know, will be purposely concealed, which is relating to the data breach. Some companies wrap it up under damage control. But so SOC analysts might be avoiding, you know, or not so, how to say, as a result, if organization didn't look at post-traumatic stress effects, they might think, okay, the memories of traumatic effects were very, you know, negative. I don't want to remember them. They can, but they can come back at any time, you know. The team could feel fear and horror, you know, and this affects performance as well of security operations center, like negative changes in beliefs and feelings, the way you think about yourself, like confidence could be affected. You could be thinking, if you were the analyst maybe who didn't recognize those symptoms because you were not trained how to recognize the initial you know, elements of big data that leads into big data breach, you might think, maybe I'm not worthy to be security analyst. How could I miss it, you know? So it's like a personal confidence could be affected, and feeling keyed up, feeling jittery or always alerted, always on a lookout. And this again is adding to the burnout, you know. So what I'm saying is, you know, it's team, look at your teams and analyze post data breach, post traumatic effects. But it's also, we need to look at the management, how the management suddenly reacts in this. It could be denial. Hey, data breach happened, but let's act nothing has happened, you know. Or it could be lack of trust in the cybersecurity program by the board and so on. So we need to analyze those angles as well. So summarizing this and summarizing your answer, we need to talk more about it. We need to dive into more research about this, because as I said, Dr. Rajini is conveying the story of usual boy, usual girl, you know, any boy, any girl. I'm conveying the message. There are humans behind those platforms protecting, and their effects are very, very similar. So raising awareness, I think, is one of the first steps we could do to you know, start discussing like we're discussing it now. Let's expand that subject. It's sort of silent pains. Nobody's really talking, but it's there, and it has big effects. I hope it makes sense what I said.
Absolutely. In fact, one of the points, ransomware attack, when it happens, the attackers, they deal on the panic and the fear of people. That's the
Yeah.
ultimate. So it's more of a psychological concept. And I would like to come to Dr. Rajini about, um, ma'am, what do you think needs to be done? What recommendation will you give to the tech companies to make applications in technology which is favorable for the people, and especially young adults? And also wanted to understand, there was one more question that was there, which was on cyberbullying and online addiction. What are the kind of, what is the similarities that you see in these cases and what are the differences?
Yeah, first of all, I want to agree with Dr. Ema that, we need to talk more about it, and, the awareness has to improve. And you were talking about, so what can they do? Some recommendation to the tech companies. So I really don't know the technology part. Madam, I think Dr. Ema, I think she knows much more than me to advise the tech companies. But on a psychological perspective, like for example, I can only give one more example that, recently I had this fifth standard girl. Okay, so the mother and father have observed some abnormal behavior in the child, which was, some kind of sexually active kind of a abnormal behavior. She started, doing something which she should not be doing in front of people, like, so then the child, I'm really happy that the child came and told father that, I was actually watching some YouTube, talk or something. And that time, the child also shared that with me elaborately, that she could see a pop-up sex video, right? Porn video. So this, I don't know, madam should, I'm just curious to know that I have not touched anything on that subject, right? About sex or porn video or anything. But I am watching something else in my mobile. But something which I have not typed comes in my video, right? It pops up to your face. And obviously, the young adults and adolescents and children, they click on that. What is this? I have not seen something like this. So then this girl watched these porn videos and she became very disturbed and she didn't know what to do. So whenever she sees similar, something physical intimacy videos in the TV, or she hears some songs, so she feels, little disturbed. So, and she says, few months I was little addicted to these videos. Whenever it used to pop up, I would click. So if you have observed in your mobile also, I don't know, whether you have observed, if we click it by chance once, those videos, you will get multiple videos of that. So the, psychology behind that is, it's really nice. I will tell you one more thing. I was searching for handbags, premium handbags. So 2-3 times I have searched this, and I get a message after 4-5 searches. After a few days, that I think you have been searching this kind of bags from so many days or whatever. I think you should buy one. So I was really, shocked to see that. So the psychology, biggest psychiatrists are working behind all these things. So I really don't know how the technology part works. And my request, my sincere request is, like, now it is open, right? So first thing is, parents and young adults and those in authority figures like teachers, colleagues, all of us should talk good and bad about technology. Of course, technology has done a huge positive things. See, click of a button. When I was doing MBBS, 25 years back, we had only black and white books. So now you click on any subject, you get wonderful videos, wonderful teaching material. So you name anything, you get information. So it is like, you can become knowledgeable. In Karnataka, we need this local language Kannada. So many a time we don't get those languages suddenly. So if I Google that, translation to this, immediately you get it. I feel so happy about it. And really technology, in COVID time especially, we in Karnataka, we have given 20 up to 24 lakh teleconsultations. We have helped people who are COVID positive, migrants, healthcare workers, everything through technology. Everything, it was possible only because technology is so forward nowadays, right? So otherwise, without technology, madam should have come here or we should have gone to UK. So there is no doubt that technology has done huge improvement in various things. And teleconsultations of patients, I give consultation to a person who is there in Delhi, who is in panic attack, who is in depression. These things were not possible without technology. But my request to those who are, in technology field, to those companies is, how do you prevent these pop-ups in between, which I have not asked for, right? So I really don't know. I think Ema madam should tell us, how is this possible? Don't they get any, if a company is there like YouTube channel, don't they get some alerts if somebody is sending those kind of pop-ups, which is not warranted? So how do we prevent these? And my suggestion to anybody, whether it is adult, women, child, adolescent, whenever there is cyberbullying, you need to talk about it. You need to share about it. And we have cyber bullies also now. If somebody is really bothering you, you need to go and seek help. And you were talking about addiction, right? So anything, which you can't keep quiet. Yesterday, I met a lady who is around 35-year-old. So she was telling, madam, I have so much of addiction to mobile now, and anybody who doesn't respond to me within 20 minutes, I cut off that friendship. I asked her, what is this magic 20 minutes? So the person, maybe she's a school teacher. So now she doesn't have, school yet to start. So I was telling, maybe your friend is a school teacher like you. She may be in a class, or she may be cooking, whatever it may be. So why have you kept the 20 minutes as the magic time, and why should they respond to you within 20 minutes? So she said, I don't know. So that is what has happened to my brain. So this kind of, so she says, more than my son, I have been, totally addicted to my mobile. My mother-in-law was asking, you are not responding to our, any of the questions, and you are not, getting involved in cooking also like before. So she said, I didn't even answer her question. I continued to watch my mobile. So this kind of problems are happening. So prevention is always better than, cure. Of course, it is human psychology. If I say, Sanjana, hey, your dress is looking nice, and Emma, ma'am, your t-shirt is so awesome, like, black and white. No, it's looking very nice. You feel happy, right? So this is how the psychology works. Everybody likes that positive reinforcement. Nobody likes, like, why have you combed your hair like this? Why is that? Nobody likes that. So I think cyber companies also, I think they are working completely on psychology only. So you have to share your issues if you are going through something, and recognize that early, right? And never ever shy away from seeking help when you're very anxious, when you're addicted to it, and when you're depressed, or any kind of, if somebody is manipulating you to transfer some money. So recently, they were advertising, you will get iPhone 13 free if you pay 300 initially. So one fellow, he paid 300, only 300, no, I will get iPhone 13, which is, more than a lakh. Then, obviously, that money is gone. So you should know good and bad of it. And of course, technology has done a lot of good things also, but know the backside of it and know how to seek help, when to seek help. But my biggest request to the companies are, so have some alert system. So if something pops up in your, website or whatever it is, have a technology backup where, you get some alerts. right? I don't know whether that is possible.
Thank you so much, ma'am. That was really insightful. In fact, you touched upon some very practical issues today that we are dealing with. Emma, your thoughts, your comments on this?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with Dr. Virginie on this. And it made me also think and observe, for example, my daughter's schools are organizing mental health days, but I never considered asking if they include cyberbullying, because we cannot isolate our children from surrounding world. We can't control as parents access to this digital world, but we shouldn't be sticking our heads in the sand when it comes to cyberbullying, but teaching kids how to resist, maybe report, this comment wasn't fair, it's harsh, it shouldn't be on your platform. So I think one thing, let's start from first steps, educational steps, talking more about not only mental health, but include cyberbullying as a part of mental health day in schools, drive awareness from here. Another element from my point of view would be make it more easier to, and train, teach how to do this, report if there is inappropriate comments. And it's, again, the things that come to my head is like analogy. We pass the driver licenses, and we have to behave according to road rules, right? Not to speed, so if we violate those road rules, we get ticket, right? So maybe something similar could be passed on to digital platforms. If someone is like a person who is benefiting and getting some sort of joy from commenting, passing on harsh comments, harassing comments, and if the reporting is being made available and easy for the other party, if they collect certain points, maybe their account should be suspended for certain amount of time, right? Like licenses. If you get, at least here in Europe, if you get 6 points, then you have to put your driving licenses in rest for 1 year. So that, I mean, I'm not saying exactly, but just to take this analogy, maybe that could be effective. But again, looking from the story I was telling, Security Operations Center, data breaches are cyberbullying. Data breaches in many forms and shapes, starting from business email compromise, where hackers impersonate, for example, CEO assistant or chief financial officer or someone, or your customer, and say, hey, I'm stuck here on my trip, please transfer 500 or whatever, my card is not working. Or in worst case scenarios, companies lose 50 million or more or less, but there is different impact, but it is cyberbullying in the middle of the day, I call it, because organizations, they are not asking this. They are not asking for the data to be stolen. It's just a strategy of bad guys. And another factor I would like to cover is, we put a lot of efforts since recently to start identifying, based on previously done research, what is cyber criminal psychology, because they are humans as well, and they have tactics. So one big advantage of security optimization, as I talked at the very beginning, is to have that pulse on your security posture and understand, I'm very solid in this area, but my gray area or blind spots are here. And this is partly done through continuous improvement internally, but also calling third-party organizations, including us. We have this so-called as-is security posture, which is covering not only technology, but organizations ask, what is the mental health and well-being of my security team? We need to survey that part alongside many other technical, process-led, skills-led, interdisciplinary elements. So, as I say, security optimization is knowing your weak points. And hackers, the bad boys out there, they are not going to invest a lot of time trying to knock the thickest wall in your cyber resilience program. They are going like a little mouse, where can I squeeze in? What is that little gray area nobody is looking at or forgot about it, or they don't have in their, how to say, in their horizon, they are not surveying it. So, there is psychology as well, and the psychological approach hackers use, the way they target organizations. So yes, as I mentioned, having pulse, constant pulse, having measuring your cybersecurity transparency, how strong are you? This 360 degrees from different angles once a year is not enough. It's nothing. People are coming, people are, technology is being, new technology is being installed or updated. Everything is constantly shifting. So very important is, as I say, it's like a heartbeat. You have to, it's like a pulse, understanding where your organization is. And I think it's more easier to say than do. So for that reason, we need a different approach, thinking to, achieving security agility, security optimization. And this as a result, and looking at Dr. Rajini's points, merging those two together, we need to act, we need to educate, we need to be given tools to act and report, and there need to be consequences, as I say, temporary suspension of accounts or something. If we don't do nothing, we escalate because those bad people, either cyber criminals or people who like to share those harassing messages, cyberbullying messages on different platforms and influence children or adults or teenagers negatively. If there is no consequence, they will keep doing, because they can go away with it. There is no effect. So that's my point.
Absolutely. Emma, you touched upon a very important point. This, in fact, we would like to extend this discussion some other day. I'm sorry. Dr. Rajini had to leave because she had a meeting, another meeting at 2:30 India time. So she had to leave. But she wants to extend this discussion. She has written, and we would like to discuss this further. This was a very insightful discussion. I think we can just go on and on because there is so much of untapped knowledge, I would say, in terms of cyber psychology. And not many books, much discussion, not much analysis, not much observation here in this front. But it's a very integral part today. So
I agree.
this was a great discussion, and I would like to thank you for accepting this invite, and also I look forward to working with you and even Dr. Rajini in the coming days, so as to have more discussions, dialogues on how we can even operationalize all this. So yes.
Fantastic. No, appreciate it. It was great fun. And I hope you see the value in, you know, in the little brainstorming discussion we had, and the different aspects we touched. But high five, you know, top credit for, as I say, I really admired the synergy between Dr. Regini and you know, different angles, 360-degree sort of conversation. Fantastically, very good strategy. Thank you.
Thank you. I really thank you. This was actually just to limit the discussion to about 1 hour, but I think we would consider extending it in the coming days. So I thank you for this. Thank you for being there. Thank you.
Okay, bye.
The attendees. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.